"You're no longer part of this project," he said, flipping through my own designs like they were someone else's trash. No eye contact. No thank you. Just a decision delivered like a press release. That's the day I stopped being an architect and started becoming the problem they didn't plan for. My name is Ethan Cole. I'm 46 years old, widowed, father of one. And until 2 months ago, I was the lead designer and strategic co-developer of what they called the future of Miami, the Leighton Bay project. Skylines, waterfront plazas, $300 million in projected revenue. And then, I was nothing. Well, almost nothing. The meeting lasted 6 minutes. Dominic Rourke, the new CEO, custom suit finance face zero soul, sat at the end of the table like a king addressing his court. "We've decided to move in a different direction, Ethan. Creative differences. Structural rigidity. You understand." I didn't reply. I didn't ask for clarification, because I wasn't confused. I was watching. They removed my name from the press deck that very afternoon. Stripped it from the concept video. Even cut my voice out of a local news interview we filmed 6 months ago. It was like I'd never existed. Like the land never whispered to me. Like I didn't walk that empty block every Sunday for 3 years, sketching the future from a bench no one ever sat on but me. But here's what they didn't know. Before Leighton Bay was an empire, it was an idea. And before it was their project, it was my land. Specifically, Lot 7C. A small, narrow slice of real estate no one wanted in 2018. Right in the heart of the project's central plaza. I bought it, quietly, legally, completely. Because back then I wasn't just drawing buildings, I was building leverage. When I walked out of that boardroom, I didn't slam doors, didn't curse, didn't burn bridges. I just smiled, softly, and walked out with the kind of silence that comes with knowing something they don't. That night, my daughter Lily found me in the garage, sitting alone, blueprint unrolled across my lap. "You okay, Dad?" I nodded, just realizing. Sometimes they don't steal your dream. Sometimes they just give you the chance to take it back, on your terms. If stories like this hit close to home, consider subscribing. These are based on real moments people rarely talk about. But we do. Right here. And we don't flinch. They took my title, my chair, and the corner office with my name on the glass. But they didn't take what mattered. Because when the dust settles and the cranes start to rise, they'll realize they forgot the one thing you can't build without. Permission. 3 days after they fired me, I stood in front of Lot 7C. A mess of weeds, fence half fallen. It looked like nothing, like a leftover space someone forgot to sweep. But it was the only reason this whole empire hadn't broken ground. Because on paper, on record, at the zoning office, in the public deeds index, I was still the legal owner. And not even their brightest intern had noticed. I didn't buy it out of spite. I bought it before anyone else believed in the project. Back when this area was just a dead zone between 2 overpriced condos and a half-finished parking deck. People said it was wasted space. I saw the heartbeat of the entire design. That's why I built the entire blueprint around it. Back in 2018, I spent every Sunday walking this place. Measured every crack in the pavement. Noticed where the shadows fell at 3 p.m. Sat for hours with a sketch pad and a coffee from the bodega across the street. I didn't just imagine buildings here, I imagined healing. After my wife passed, this place became my way of keeping something alive. And now they wanted to bulldoze it into a frozen yogurt franchise. That night, Lily found me at the kitchen table, eyes bloodshot, hands still stained with graphite. She dropped her backpack. "You didn't go into work again." I smiled. "I don't work there anymore, remember? Are you okay?" I thought for a second. "I'm not angry," I said softly. "I'm awake." I opened my laptop, pulled up the parcel registry, double-checked my name. Still there, still untouched. Then I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I opened a folder named Quiet Fire, and I started building. Inside, a scanned copy of the deed, correspondence with the planning office, zoning regulations on eminent domain, They can't use it if they never filed. A note to myself, let them try. You see, this isn't about revenge, it's about rhythm. They play the loud symphony. I hum in the silence beneath it. And when they hit the wrong note, I'll be the feedback that brings the whole speaker down. Stick around, we're just getting started. This isn't a story about what they took from me. It's about what I never let go of. And the consequences of pretending a man doesn't exist when he still owns the land you're standing on. They threw a launch event. Ribbons, champagne, politicians smiling into cameras. I watched from my porch. Didn't even mute the live stream. Because while they celebrated the future, they forgot to check who still owned the past. I remember the day well. Big stage, big promises, Leighton Bay reimagining the waterfront. Dominic Rourke stood behind a podium, sunglasses on, smile weaponized, flanked by city officials who only care where the money flows. He was pitching glass towers, sculpted walkways, and something he called the cultural corridor. I built that corridor. I gave it that name. I sketched it on a napkin in a hospital waiting room while my wife fought for her life. And now it was a bullet point on his slideshow. I didn't get angry. I took notes. Because I noticed something none of them mentioned. Lot 7C. It wasn't in the 3D render, wasn't in the flyover animation. The plaza they talked about building. It didn't exist. Not legally, not yet. And they didn't mention that. Because they thought no one would notice. But someone did. That night I got a message. A zoning coordinator junior level emailed me directly. Hi, Mr. Cole, just confirming that you're still listed as owner of Parcel 7C. There's been some confusion around development filings. Could you verify status? I didn't respond. Not out of pride, out of precision. I needed them to twist, not snap, not yet. You see, when someone takes your voice, you don't yell to get it back. You wait for their silence to get loud. That weekend I walked the edge of my lot. Same dirt, same broken sidewalk, same overgrown brush that the city never cleaned. But now every inch of it pulsed. With leverage, with memory, with power they didn't know they needed until they already broke ground. Lily noticed I was quiet during dinner. You're thinking again, she said. Yeah, about them, about timing. She tilted her head, like revenge timing. I smiled, like gravity. Because here's what I know. You can build a tower 60 stories high, but if the wrong piece of dirt says no, all you have is a blueprint no one can touch. If you've ever watched someone smile while stealing your life's work, just wait. Because gravity doesn't ask for permission. It just reminds them where the ground is. The first call came on a Monday, unknown number. I didn't answer. Second call, Tuesday. Voicemail, nervous voice, too many ums. By Thursday, they were calling from 3 different departments. And me, I was watering the rosemary in my backyard. They assumed I'd want to talk. That I'd be flattered. That after a few days in the cold, I'd crawl back toward the warmth of the fire that burned me. But I didn't need their meeting. I already had what I wanted. Time. And time, when you hold the right piece of ground, isn't a delay. It's a weapon. The voicemails were polite at first. Hi, Mr. Cole, just reaching out to touch base about potential alignment on the central parcel. Dominic mentioned you might be open to a coffee sometime this week. I didn't respond. Not because I was being petty, because I wanted them to feel it. The weight of being ignored. The chill of uncertainty. The hum of realization that the story they told the press had a hole in it. A hole shaped like me. That Thursday night, I logged into the municipal project status portal. A public-facing dashboard Leighton had championed for transparency. Guess what? Their core zone permit had been flagged pending clarification. The projected timeline quietly pushed back. 6 weeks. No announcement. No update to investors. Just a small red asterisk blinking like a warning light they hoped no one would notice. I noticed. And I smiled, because you don't need to shout to cause chaos. You just need to become the question no one has the answer to. That weekend, Lily caught me in the garage again, brushing dust off an old rolled-up set of blueprints. You going back? No, I said. Then what are you doing? I paused, making sure they can't keep pretending I never existed. I opened my laptop, started drafting a message to a journalist I used to work with. Cliff the Herald, good guy, owed me a favor. I didn't send it. Not yet. Just saved it to a folder called Clockwork. Because that's what this is, not revenge. Mechanics. Push here, wait, pull there, watch. And when the system starts to groan under its own weight, you just stay very, very still and let the bolts snap one by one. Let them call. Let them escalate. Let them beg. I won't raise my voice because I already raised the stakes. And they built an empire on top of the one thing they don't control, me. By the end of that week, I wasn't just a name they couldn't find. I was a variable they couldn't control. Meetings started late. Emails circled back. And the smartest guy in the room was the one not sitting at the table. It started with a leak. A small blog planning watchdog ran a story. Central zoning dispute may delay. Leighton Bay groundbreaking. No names, no accusations, just one loaded sentence. Sources suggest a parcel at the heart of the project is still under private ownership. I didn't share it, didn't forward, didn't click. I just waited. Because rumors are like fire alarms. You don't need to prove the fire is real, you just need people to believe it might be. By Tuesday, Rourke held a closed-door strategic recalibration session. Translation: panic. One of my friends on the inside, still loyal, texted me 2 words. They're spiraling. That night, a new offer came. Courier envelope, hand-delivered. Inside, a formal buyout proposal. $325 million for Lot 7C. Immediate closing, no contingencies. The paper smelled expensive. The envelope felt heavy. But my hands didn't even shake when I tossed it on the kitchen table. Because they still didn't get it. This was never about money. That same night, I pulled Lily's old science fair model from the garage. It was a cardboard volcano, unfinished, dusty. She was 9 when we made it together. "Why are you looking at that?" she asked. I smiled. "Because it reminds me of what happens when pressure builds in silence." Dominic emailed me directly the next day. First time. Subject requesting conversation. Clarification around Parcel 7C. He used big words. Gentle tone, like we were old friends who had drifted apart. Like he hadn't kicked me off the blueprint and erased my initials from the concept video. I replied with one line, "The land remains where it always was." So do I. That evening, the next article hit. Urban Pulse Real Estate's Daily Gospel. Unaccounted parcel threatens Phase 1 of Leighton Bay redevelopment project. Insiders confirm ownership question linked to former co-designer. And suddenly, I wasn't a ghost anymore. I was a crack in the glass, and they couldn't stop looking at it. You ever watch someone try to smile while their house is burning behind them? That's what Rourke looked like on the news that night. Telling investors everything is on track, with sweat blooming beneath his collar. And the best part, I hadn't even started speaking yet. They thought I'd come crawling back. Or disappear for good. Or maybe just move on like a grown man should. But instead, I stayed quiet and let the press do the talking. Because the truth doesn't have to shout to burn. It was Friday morning when everything cracked open. Urban Pulse didn't just whisper this time. They screamed. Keyland parcel in dispute, Leighton Bay's multi-billion-dollar project in jeopardy. And right under the headline, my name. Ethan Cole, original designer and confirmed legal owner of Lot 7C, has not released rights to proceed. No hiding now, no speculation, just me right there in black and white. Dominic went live that afternoon. Hastily organized press conference, same podium, fewer smiles. Leighton remains fully committed to transparency, resolution, and forward momentum, he said. His voice had that tight rhythm, controlled breathing. Like a man doing CPR on his own reputation. Behind him, a rendering of the core plaza, still showing a space that legally was mine. I sat on my couch, coffee in hand, Lily beside me, watching it all unfold. "They're scared now," she said, eyes never leaving the screen. "They should be," I answered. By Monday, the fallout had begun. Investors froze funds. Phase 1 construction paused. Real estate blogs ran opinion pieces titled, How one forgotten lot just rewrote the future of Miami's skyline. Even the city who once ignored me started sending urgent clarification notices to Layton's legal team. And me, I still hadn't raised my voice. Just kept walking my small lot every morning like it was a throne no one noticed until the crown dropped. A new email came from Dominic. No assistant this time, no pleasantries. We are prepared to discuss equitable terms and full creative restoration. Please respond within 48 hours. Creative restoration. That's corporate for we'll put your name back if you give us what we want. I didn't respond. I just updated the title of my internal folder. From clockwork to collapse. Sometimes the cleanest revenge is just letting them choke on their own PR. This isn't even the worst part. If you've made it this far, you already know. There's more coming. And when it hits, you'll want to be here for it. So hit that follow or subscribe, or whatever button keeps you close to this story, because I haven't even said yes yet. And they're already bleeding. They called it a conversation. They booked a private table, sent a black car, even offered my old drink order. But the moment Dominic sat down, I could smell the sweat behind his smile. Because this time I didn't come to negotiate. I came to listen to him squirm. We met at the Ledge, the same upscale bar he took me to when we signed the original Phase 1 plans. Back then it felt like a celebration. Today, it felt like a hostage exchange. He stood as I approached, hand extended like nothing had ever happened. I didn't take it. Ethan, he nodded. You look, well, I pulled out my chair. You look worried. He smiled, the rehearsed kind. Look, this got out of hand. The press twisted things. You and I, we built this. You know that. You built over me, I said, voice flat. There's a difference. A pause. Then the pitch began. A creative advisory role. A bonus structure tied to project milestones. Full name restoration on all materials. He even slid a revised blueprint across the table. Lot 7C was now labeled Community Commons, Founders Green. You mean my land, I asked. He looked up. Finally, quiet. Yes. I stared at him, let it sit. Let him stew in the silence I'd been soaking in for months. I didn't come here for money, Dominic. Then what do you want? I sipped my water. I want them to remember what you tried to erase. That night I walked the perimeter of my lot again. Same wind, same silence. But something in the air had changed. Because now he was following my rhythm. Not the other way around. The next day, 2 of Rourke's senior investors jumped ship. One froze funding. The other issued a public statement. We were unaware of unresolved legal matters tied to core development. And just like that, the story became about him. That afternoon I opened my laptop. Drafted a clean, concise, legally binding intent to lease. Not to Layton. To their competitor, the firm I knew they feared. No sale, no surrender, just this line. Lot 7C remains under full control of Ethan Cole, and shall be developed independently under original vision, free from Layton oversight. I didn't sue. I didn't shout. I simply said, this piece, it's mine. And now you build around me. Or you don't build at all. They thought I wanted back in. But I never planned to return to the table. I was building my own. And when they finally looked up, they realized it wasn't a rivalry anymore. It was a reckoning. It started with a phone call, but not from Layton, from Casimir Development Group. Rival firm, leaner, sharper. The kind of people who don't make noise, they make moves. Their CEO Marion Shu called me directly. I read everything she said. Urban Pulse, the public filings, even your early concepts. And I want to help you build it. Your way. I met her team 2 days later on my lot. No press, no suits, just blueprints and boots. They listened. Actually listened. To the original vision. The pedestrian corridors. The reflection pools. The bench by the south wall where Lily used to eat ice cream after school. It wasn't nostalgia. It was returning the soul to the structure. That same week, I filed a joint use permit under a new development name. The Quiet Mile. A public green plaza, low-rise cultural corridor and healing architecture space. Not skyscrapers, not fountains of glass, but light, path, purpose. Exactly how I drew it 6 years ago. Meanwhile, Leighton Dominic, they were bleeding cash. The project's timeline had slipped again. Shareholders demanded transparency. City Council requested a second hearing. And word leaked that Lot 7C had officially partnered with Casimir. Dominic must have thrown a chair through his window. Back home, Lily found me on the floor, surrounded by old drafts. "Is this really happening?" she asked. I nodded. "You're rebuilding?" "No," I said quietly. "I'm restoring." That night, I stood in the middle of my lot under a construction lamp Casimir had brought in. The city around me buzzed, but that patch of earth, still, sacred, mine, and now, alive again. They called me obsolete, said I was too attached, too slow, too soft. But the truth is they were loud because they were insecure. And I was quiet because I knew how deep my roots went. There's something poetic about watching a man fall from a height he built himself. Dominic used to talk about legacy. Now the only thing attached to his name is liability. It was a Thursday when the first internal leak surfaced. Not a tabloid, not a whisper. A full-on PDF dump from an anonymous Leighton employee emailed to Urban Pulse Casimir and half the city's zoning committee. Subject line: he knew. Inside the files, meeting transcripts confirming Dominic was aware Lot 7C hadn't been secured. Emails where his legal counsel warned about risk of exposure. Edited renders that deliberately removed my name from the core schematic. And a private investor note: "If Cole doesn't sign, we're building on sand." The fallout was instant. Leighton's stock dipped 17% overnight. 3 board members resigned by Monday. And Dominic, suspended, indefinitely. I didn't comment, didn't post, didn't go on record, because when a man buries himself, you don't interrupt. That night, I sat on the back porch with Lily. She scrolled through her phone, then looked up. "You see this?" she asked, showing me the headline. "Leighton CEO removed amid allegations of development misconduct." I nodded. "You mad it took this long?" I shook my head. Revenge isn't about fast, sweetheart. It's about clean. Meanwhile, construction on the Quiet Mile had begun. The first dig, the first stone. My name, not in fine print, not hidden behind a shell company, was on the permit. People asked why I didn't build taller, flashier, louder. And I told them the truth. Because I'm not trying to outdo them. I'm trying to outlast them. Dominic tried to reach me. Again. An unsigned letter this time. Typed, formal. He blamed the board, the city, even me. But not once did he apologize. So I did what I always did. Filed it away, in a folder labeled irrelevant. They erased me from their blueprint. Now I'm the reason they have to redraw the whole map. That's the thing about foundations. They don't forget who poured the first stone. You spend your life drafting dreams for other people. One day they thank you. The next, they erase you. But the thing about blueprints, the lines may fade, the ink may wear, but the name in the corner stays. It happened in a room much smaller than I expected. No cameras, no media, just 2 attorneys, a neutral notary, and me. The transfer of development rights agreement sat in front of me. 2 inches thick, stamped, reviewed, legalized. It was the final piece. My lot, leased not sold, to Casimir Development. With 3 conditions. My name stays on every design that reflects the original layout. No vertical expansion beyond 4 stories ever. A bronze plaque on the East Garden bench engraved with just 5 words. This began as a promise. I didn't flinch as I signed, didn't pause for drama, didn't smile for the win. Because this wasn't about beating them anymore. This was about completing me. Outside, the sun was setting. The first truck for the Quiet Mile rolled in quiet, humble, without celebration. But I knew what that sound was. Not construction. Correction. Dominic. Gone. Out of the picture. A footnote in a lawsuit now under review. They say he's relocated to somewhere quieter, fitting. Because that's what you do when the echo of your downfall follows you louder than your press clippings. Lily met me outside the site gate. She handed me a pen. "You should keep this one," she smiled. I did. Not for memory, but for the next thing I'll build. Because here's the secret they never understood. You can fire a man from your company. You can strip his title, bury his name. But if he planted the first flag in the dirt, you'll always be building on his terms. I didn't ask for recognition, but it came anyway. Not as applause, not as awards, but in the quiet nods of workers who knew whose prints were under their boots. I didn't return to reclaim a crown. I came back to remind the city whose name was in the concrete. It was almost surreal walking through the space again. Only this time it wasn't through renderings. Not models. Not pitch decks. It was real. The reflection pool had been poured. The pathways were winding just as I designed them, leading nowhere fast, guiding people into pause. The oak trees stood where I once wrote her name in chalk, and the bench already polished, already placed. 5 words etched into the metal. This began as a promise. City officials came to visit. Quiet delegation. One of them, an assistant zoning director, shook my hand a little too tightly and said, "We should have listened sooner." I didn't reply. I just nodded once. Because sometimes the best thing you can do to history is let it sit with its own guilt. Across the street, someone had painted a mural. A rough outline of the original blueprint overlaid with a phrase in black. The man they removed, the name they can't replace. I didn't post it, didn't tag it, but Lily took a photo. She keeps it as her lock screen now. Leighton's still alive, but limping. They've restructured, rebranded, tried to erase the headlines like a bad quarter. But they can't walk past this project without seeing my name. They can't land a new deal in the city without someone whispering, "Is this another Ethan Cole situation?" And that's the legacy I never had to fight for, just wait for. One afternoon, an intern from Kazmir asked me, "Do you regret letting them build without you?" I looked around, at the plaza, at the kids running across the open walkways, at the garden blooming over the pipes. I'd insisted stay low, stay quiet. And I said, they didn't build without me. They just built late. Because some of us don't raise kingdoms. We raise ground. And we wait for them to realize. They've been standing on it the whole time. They thought I'd come back angry. I didn't. They thought I'd fight. I waited. They thought I'd want to destroy what they built. But all I ever wanted was to build something real. And now it's here, quiet, steady, alive. It's been 3 months since the last press mention. 6 since Dominic disappeared from the industry radar. A year since they tried to bury me. And now, I visit the Quiet Mile once a week. Not to inspect, not to fix, just to sit. The plaque's still there. Same bench, same quote. Only now, people sit here without even knowing who I am. Sometimes I hear them read the words out loud. This began as a promise, and then they fall silent like it means something different to each of them. And maybe it does. Maybe that's the point. Lily's older now. She's studying architecture. Wants to rebuild broken schools in bad neighborhoods. She asked me once if I wished I'd fought harder. I said, no. I'm glad I didn't waste time yelling at a locked door. I just built another one and left it open. There's a quiet kind of revenge, not dramatic, not loud, but lasting. The kind that shows up in city maps, in blueprints stamped with your name, in the way people remember you even if they don't know they're doing it. So if you've ever been overlooked, forgotten, pushed out of your own story, you don't need to scream. You just need to know who you are. Then wait. They'll come looking for the ground they took for granted, and you'll still be standing on it. If this story spoke to something deep in you, if you've ever been erased, replaced, or underestimated, I hope you felt seen. These stories don't always get told, but here they do. So if you want to hear more like this, real, raw, and built on truth, hit that subscribe. Not for the drama, not for the views, but for the people who still believe some foundations never crack.